Outstanding, the ultimate accolade for teachers. We challenge secondary maths teacher Lisa Essop to go from good to outstanding. A top inspector observes one lesson. 2 experts will fine-tune her practice and improve her presentation. Lisa then has 3 weeks to put the advice into action before the inspector comes back for the final verdict.
She wasn't quite as scary as I expected her to be. She's actually... No, I can't say that. No, I can't say she's a pussycat.
Valentine's High School is a large comprehensive in Essex. Lisa Essop is a secondary maths teacher in her 5th year of teaching.
When it comes to maths, I really like the problem-solving side to it. And when you're confronted with a challenge, you're kind of competing with other people.
The maths department rates her teaching as good.
Primarily with Lisa, she's just such a fun-loving person. And that then is enthused into a positive working atmosphere.
Lisa will focus the challenge of getting to outstanding on her Year 7s.
Someone tell me about C.
An isosceles triangle?
That is perfect. My Year 7 group are a very lively bunch. There's some lovely characters in there that really bring a nice atmosphere to the classroom. Go on then, tell me about football.
Sometimes she lets us shout out the answers and stuff. She's like one of the best teachers in the school. Like, everyone likes her.
Very nice. The challenges that I've always struggled with is differentiation. To be honest, I feel that I've never really learnt how to differentiate effectively.
Lisa's quite willing to experiment and try new things. She'll take advice on board and she'll act on it.
It would be really nice for me if I was to be graded as being outstanding. And obviously for the kids, because then they've got a teacher who, you know, can bring out the best in them. Lots of things that I need to do this evening. I need to get my resources and I've got a lot of cutting to do. Voila!
With hundreds of inspections under her belt, School Inspector Claire Gillies leads teams up and down the country. She certainly knows an outstanding lesson when she sees one.
Okay, Year 7. To start off with, there's some triangles stuck on your table.
Lisa has 60 minutes to impress our inspector.
I want you to measure the angles of each of those vertices on the triangle, and I want you to fill in the grid for me. Before you do that, as you can notice, some of them are kind of skewed a little bit, so I don't mind you. You can move around the table. You need to work as a group.
This is acute, yeah, so we know it should be before 90.
Yeah, it's 2,000.
So this is 10 degrees.
Number 2 is 10 degrees.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
60 inside. 69. Outside.
69. No, it's not 69.
68.
We were measuring angles and it was fun because we got to interact with our group and we used a lot of cooperation.
That's the general gist of it. All triangles should add up to 180 degrees, yeah. Okay, let's write down our lesson objective. To be able to find missing angles on a straight line, at a point and in a triangle. So, I've got a triangle and you've seen this before, haven't you? My phone microphone. I have my big triangle. And I want to try and use this triangle to help me to prove that angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees. Has anyone got any ideas? And I need to get the mic on you. Gary.
I think it does add up to 180 degrees because it only goes halfway around the circle, and that's...
Okay, good point, but I still need some knowledge on how I'm going to use this big triangle. You can do anything you want with it, and you need to try and prove that fact.
I can prove that it's 180 degrees because that's a triangle and all angles on a triangle add up to 180.
Not quite. Right, I'm going to show you. Watch.
It was quite confusing, like how she ripped up the paper and stuck it to the whiteboard. Like she kind of like just told us, but then moved on to the next thing.
Okay, let's move on then. And I want you to try and get some answers for these missing angles for me. Okay.
That's like a right angle.
Excellent.
So do we do 51, take away 90 degrees to give us that answer?
Take away 90 degrees.
To
What
work out
angle fact do you think you're going to use there?
180.
Excellent. So if the whole thing adds up to 180, you know that that is 90. So if you add those together
Find out the answer.
and then subtract from 180, you'll get your C, won't you? Yeah? Yes. You're all stuck on E. Right, I'm going to show you the trick. Okay, can you stop what you're doing, please? Right, I'm just going to focus on E very quickly. In fact, I'll use this green paper. If we look at E, I want you to focus on just this one section. What does that look like? What angle fact? Eva?
180.
Good. So what will E be then if that's 180? Joseph?
50 degrees.
50 degrees. And then I can move that line around. So if that's 50, what will F be? If E is 50, what will F be? Renee?
130.
Excellent, well done. Stand up, because I'm going to try and catch you out. Okay, angle B is 108 degrees. True or false? The answer is true. If you're false, can you sit down, please? Eunice, you were false.
True and false bit, that was a really good exercise. You have to think what side you put it on, because some people were putting up their false sign, but it was actually on the true sign because they wasn't looking.
An eighth of a turn is 45 degrees. True or false? Answer is true. Yes. You are far too clever for me. I should have created harder ones.
So how did Lisa get on?
Lisa, thank you very much for letting me watch that lesson. I enjoyed it very much. And before we talk about the sort of content of the lesson, I do want to celebrate that you're giving this Year 7 group a real sense of fun in maths, that it's okay to make mistakes, that it's okay not quite to grasp something straight off. I want to ask you, standing back, how much you felt they learnt in that lesson.
I think individually there were students that understood all of the facts. Some of them, they'd understood it, but in terms of sewing it into the worksheet that I'd given them, they couldn't quite make the connection.
I think you've probably hit the nail on the head that I felt at that point in the lesson we probably needed to have slightly differentiated worksheets. There were definitely, as you say, a couple who really struggled, and there were a couple who I think could have sort of possibly flown a bit more. Yeah. So that was probably the ingredient, the one main ingredient that I felt meant it wasn't outstanding. And I wasn't quite clear whether we were just mastering calculating missing angles or trying to underpin that a bit more with the proving of why. Because we touched on that with the tearing the triangle and didn't really explore the explanation as much as I was expecting when we got onto that in the sort of middle of the lesson, wasn't it? But let's forget the sense of fun, enjoyment, with the triangles stuck on the tables, the phone microphone, the true, false. It was great. So thank you very much again for letting me share that lesson.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
With the first observation over, the inspector highlighted Lisa's need to work hard on the differentiation and to make the lesson structure stay focused on her learning objective. It's time to bring on the experts. To boost Lisa's progress, help comes from presentation and communications coach Mo Shapiro and secondary maths expert John Wilkinson. They start by watching Lisa's lesson.
To start off with, there's some triangles stuck on your table.
I thought she was great. She had a lot of energy. She gives out a lot to the class, which I think is excellent.
Before you do that,
I felt that the instructions she gave were a little bit confused.
Good point.
I think she gets a bit tense sometimes and her voice tends to go up a little bit squeaky.
Okay, we need to move on. Let's write down our lesson objective.
For me, the learning objectives needed to be at the start. The structure of the lesson needs to be made clear far earlier. If we can start then on the structure of the lesson, which to me is key, it sets the tone of the whole lesson. I think your lesson objectives came in somewhere after about 17 or 18 minutes, and I would like to see those up as the children arrive. It will engage the students, it gives them something to focus on.
I think in terms of me putting the lesson objective up, I wanted to start them in almost like they didn't know what they were doing. You want them to kind of investigate.
I like the investigative approach. I think it's good, I think it's interesting, and I think it gives the lesson ownership. However, because of the breadth of experience in that class, I think you needed to have a focus.
Okay.
And I think it's something you can refer back to. In that respect, the starter to your lesson was, for me, slightly long. A very simple starter might be to use an interactive protractor on the board.
Yeah.
You've got the whiteboard.
Okay.
I move this. Tell me the angle, please. B, C, D.
Okay, so they're just writing down the angle. Okay.
Immediately, you can assess as to whether that child can read a protractor. What I was particularly pleased about is that you tried to offer a proof. However, my concern is that the group that you had, their range of ability was quite expansive. 2/3 were left actually slightly mesmerised as a magic trick. And what I'd like to offer here are 3 other proofs that would probably pull in more of the students than you did. The first one, okay, is quite simple. We've got 3 congruent triangles. We identify the angles and then we just rearrange them, and the students will soon see that those 3 angles will give you the 180 degrees just by rearranging them. Another variation on the theme is simply to fold the 3 angles in. And it becomes very, very clear that, again, our 3 angles have given us 180 degrees. And because of the differentiated nature of that set, the abilities in there, there are some children that you can extend with this, and the children will soon associate alternate angles, Z angles, S angles, and enable you to identify these other 2 angles as being the internal angles of the triangle, again giving you the 3 that make up 180 degrees. I think having these available, along with the tearing up of the triangle method and placing on a line, one of these will appeal to one of those students in that class. The plenary to me is a key part of any lesson, and I was really pleased to see that you'd gone to the effort of making it an integral part of your lesson. I had one reservation about your plenary, and that was the child who got the question false on the second occasion and then was sat down. Now, how much more did they take part in the plenary once they'd sat down?
Okay.
So I offer you a game of dominoes.
Okay.
These are looped domino cards.
Yeah.
You can start with any card you like. The answer to that is on one of the other cards. The beauty of these is that, again, they can be differentiated. This set here is a lot easier than the set there. But I think it's a wonderful activity as a plenary to pull the whole lesson together.
Good point. Do anything you want with it.
That's okay, we're all going to have a group view, you know. Should we try it?
Communications coach Mo Shapiro begins with some exercises to get Lisa's voice warmed up.
And so we could go That's moving your lips then. Ta 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 ta. Now let's say it, having warmed everything up.
Okay, Year 7, if you could stop what you are doing, please.
And nobody would dare do otherwise.
I want you to measure the angles of each of those vertices on the triangle, and I want you to fill in the grid for me.
I just wanted to think about the instructions and the way that you give them.
Does that make sense? Before you do that,